The note was still in my trembling hands when I realized my entire life had been a lie. $13,000. Gone. My family, also gone. Christmas morning, and I was standing alone in an empty house, staring at words that would burn into my memory forever. We took the money from your emergency account. Don't worry about us. We'll be having the time of our lives on the beautiful beaches of Hawaii. Love, your loving family. But here's what they didn't know as they sipped cocktails on that stolen vacation. I was about to take back everything they thought belonged to them. And I mean everything. My name is Audrey, and this is the story of how Christmas morning became the day I stopped being their ATM and started reclaiming my life. What happened next? Let's just say they came home to a very different house than the one they left. 3 years. 3 years of funding their dreams while mine suffocated under the weight of their endless demands. But that note, that cruel, calculated note, was about to become their biggest mistake. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began, because betrayal this deep doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, like poison seeping through cracks in a foundation you never knew was crumbling. I was 25, fresh out of college with a computer science degree and a killer job as a data architect at a major insurance company. My salary made my college friends jealous, and I could have lived anywhere, done anything. But family loyalty, that's what kept me home. That's what nearly destroyed me. The conversation that sealed my fate happened on a Tuesday night in our cramped kitchen. Mom sat across from me wearing that worried expression she'd perfected over the years, the one that made you feel guilty before she even opened her mouth. Dad stood behind her, shoulders sagging with that particular defeated look that made you want to fix everything. Audrey, honey, we really need your help, Mom began, her hands twisting together the way they always did when money came up. The mortgage payments are killing us. Your father's salary just isn't cutting it anymore. Dad nodded, looking like the weight of the world was crushing him. If you could stay here and help us out, just for a while, it would make such a difference. We're family, right? We stick together. Such simple words. Such devastating consequences. They asked for $1,000 a month toward the mortgage. At the time, it felt reasonable, generous of me, even. I'd save money on rent, utilities, groceries. Mom promised home-cooked meals every night, no cleaning responsibilities, no adult worries beyond my job. I'd be helping my family and living comfortably. My twin sisters Daisy and Sophia were 14 then, typical teenagers with their constant giggling and mess-making. But they were my sisters, and I loved them. The idea of helping them, of being the responsible older sister who made everyone's life better, felt good. It felt right. So I said yes. That simple word cost me 3 years of my life and nearly broke my spirit. The first few months were exactly what Mom promised. I'd drag myself home exhausted from debugging system architecture problems, and there would be the smell of roast chicken or beef stew filling the house. Mom setting plates on the table, calling everyone for dinner like something straight out of a family sitcom. It felt warm, secure, like I was part of something bigger than myself. During family gatherings, my parents would brag about me to our relatives. Audrey's doing so well at her job, Mom would announce, her chest puffed with pride. And she's so good to us, helping with the house payments. We're so lucky to have such a responsible daughter. That praise felt intoxicating. When my college friends complained about their struggles with rent and grocery bills, I felt smugly superior about my decision to stay home. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving and helping my family thrive too. That's when the gift-giving started. For Mom's birthday, I bought her a beautiful necklace that cost almost $300. For Dad, expensive tools for his workshop that made his eyes light up like a kid's on Christmas. For the twins, whatever was trendy, designer shoes, electronics, gift cards to stores I'd never heard of but they obsessed over. They gave me gifts too, of course. Looking back now, I can see the pattern that should have been a massive red flag. My gifts were thoughtful, expensive, carefully chosen. Their gifts to me were clearly bought on sale or grabbed last minute. A cheap candle set that smelled like artificial vanilla. A clearance sweater 2 sizes too big. A gift card to a restaurant I'd never mentioned liking. But I didn't think much about it then. I was just happy to be the generous sister, the daughter who made everyone's life better. About 6 months in, our washing machine started making sounds like it was dying a slow, mechanical death. Clothes came out still dirty, or worse, with mysterious stains that hadn't been there before. Without even thinking about it, I bought a new washing machine. $800, but it was an investment in all our comfort, right? A few months later, I replaced the microwave that barely heated food anymore, then the coffee maker that made everything taste like burnt disappointment. Each time, my family was grateful and excited. Each time, I felt like the hero of our little household drama. By the end of my first year living at home, I had replaced most of the major appliances. Then I moved on to furniture. The living room sofa was falling apart, so I bought a gorgeous sectional that cost $1,200. Then I redid my own bedroom with a new bed, dresser, and desk setup that made me feel like a real adult. Everyone loved the changes I was making to the house. But something else was changing too, something I was too blind to see. The thank yous were becoming shorter, less enthusiastic. Sometimes when I brought home something new, my family would just nod and say, "That's nice," before going back to whatever they were doing. I brushed it off. We were family. Of course they appreciated everything I was doing. They just didn't need to say it all the time. Then the twins turned 17, and suddenly everything changed. They started asking for money directly. Not small amounts, we're talking hundreds of dollars at a time. New clothes for school, money for concerts, cash for shopping trips with friends. When I hesitated or asked what they needed it for, they'd call me greedy or stingy. Then they'd run to mom and dad, who would gently suggest that I should be more generous with my sisters. "They're just teenagers," mom would say. "They need things. You make good money, Audrey. What's a few $100s to you?" Meanwhile, I was still upgrading their lives. I bought new furniture for the twins' bedroom, matching dressers, new beds, study desks for each of them. The total came to almost $2,000. Finally, Sophia said when the furniture was delivered, not even looking up from her phone. "Our old stuff was so embarrassing. I was ashamed to have friends over. No thank you. No appreciation. Just a complaint about how long it had taken me to replace their perfectly functional furniture." I redid my parents' bedroom too, buying them a king-size bed, nightstands, and a matching dresser set. Mom's only comment was, "You could have gotten the more expensive mattress. This one's just okay." That stung, but I pushed the feeling down deep where I pushed all the uncomfortable feelings that were starting to pile up. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in October. I walked into our dining room after one of the worst days I'd had at work. We were dealing with a major system failure that had me staying late and stressed beyond belief. All I wanted was to eat dinner and decompress. Instead, I walked into Daisy and Sophia in the middle of complaining to our parents about me. She said no when we asked for money to go shopping this weekend, Daisy was saying, her voice dripping with dramatic teenage outrage. "We just wanted $400 to get some new winter clothes." I sat down at the table, trying to keep my temper in check. "I didn't say no forever. I said I wanted to see what you were planning to buy first. $400 can disappear really fast if you're not careful." "See?" Daisy said, throwing her hands up like she was presenting evidence to a jury. "She doesn't trust us. She thinks we're going to waste her precious money." That's when I lost it. Want money for clothes? Get jobs. That's what I did when I was your age. The room went dead silent. Daisy's mouth dropped open like I had suggested she rob a bank. "Excuse me?" Mom said, her voice ice cold. "I said they should get jobs if they want spending money. I've been working since I was 15. I gave half my paychecks to you guys, and I still bought my own clothes and everything else I needed." Dad put down his fork and stared at me like I had personally insulted his entire existence. "Audrey, that's completely different. You chose to work early. Your sisters are still teenagers. They shouldn't have to deal with the stress and responsibility of jobs yet. They need to focus on school and being kids." "They're 17, I said, my voice getting louder. "I was 15 when I started working, and I still kept my grades up." "That was your choice," Mom said firmly. "We're not going to force our younger daughters into adult responsibilities before they're ready. They have their whole lives to work. Right now, They should be enjoying their teenage years. The rest of dinner was silence so thick you could cut it with a knife. No one talked to me. No one even looked at me. I finished eating as quickly as I could and went up to my room, feeling like I was the villain in my own family's story. After that dinner, the house became arctic. My parents and sisters stopped talking to me entirely. They would have conversations around me like I was invisible, making plans and discussing their days while completely ignoring my presence. Fine by me. I went to work, came home, ate dinner in silence, and went to my room. If they wanted to act like children, that was their problem. This went on for 3 weeks. Then one evening in late November, I came home from work to find my family huddled around the dining room table, talking excitedly about something spread out in front of them. They were so absorbed in their conversation that they didn't notice me walk in at first. When I approached the table, Mom looked up and her face broke into the biggest smile I had seen from her in weeks. "Audrey, perfect timing," she said, jumping up and grabbing a colorful travel booklet from the table. "Look at this!" She shoved the booklet into my hands. Hawaii vacation packages. Pictures of tropical beaches, palm trees, luxury resort pools that look like paradise. "You need to book tickets and hotel rooms right away," Mom continued, practically bouncing with excitement. "If we don't do it soon, we'll be stuck with only the most expensive options left. Christmas in Hawaii is going to be amazing." I stared at her, then at the booklet, then back at her. This is the first time I've ever heard about any Hawaii trip. Mom waved her hand dismissively, like I was being ridiculous. "Oh, we've been planning this for weeks. We already figured everything out without bothering you with all the details. We calculated all the costs, figured out the best hotels, picked the perfect dates. All that's left is buying the plane tickets and booking the rooms." Dad looked up from some papers spread out on the table, his voice calm and matter-of-fact like he was discussing the weather. "It'll cost $13,000 for all 5 of us. That covers flights, hotel for a week, and spending money." I stared at them. All 4 family members were looking at me expectantly, clearly waiting for me to say, "Sure, no problem," and pull out my credit card like their personal ATM. "Are you all insane?" I said slowly. "I'm not giving you $13,000 for a vacation." Mom's cheerful expression immediately turned sour. "Audrey, don't be ridiculous. I know you have that money. You created that family emergency account a year ago, remember? The one where we all have access? There's $20,000 in there right now." My stomach dropped to my feet. She was right about the account. I had set it up so the family could handle emergencies when I wasn't around to transfer money immediately. But that money wasn't for vacations. "That's emergency money," I said firmly. "It's not supposed to be touched unless something urgent happens. Remember 6 months ago when the sewer pipe burst and we had to pay $5,000 for emergency repairs? That's what the account is for." Dad slammed his hand down on the table, making the travel booklets jump. "We all need this vacation, Audrey. We've been working hard. The girls have been studying hard. We deserve a break. And you can always save up more money." I looked around the table at my family. Mom was glaring at me with her arms crossed. Dad looked irritated that I wasn't immediately agreeing to their plan. Daisy and Sophia were both giving me pouty, disappointed looks like I had just told them Santa wasn't real. "I'm not paying $13,000 for a vacation to Hawaii," I said again, slower this time so they would understand. "Find another way to pay for it or pick a cheaper destination." Without waiting for their response, I turned around and walked straight to my room. I didn't even bother with dinner. I just wanted to get away from all of them. After that confrontation, the atmosphere in the house became absolutely freezing. My parents and sisters went back to pretending I didn't exist, but this time it was even worse than before. The looks they gave me weren't just disappointed, they were angry, resentful, like I was the worst person in the world for not funding their dream vacation. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. That was their problem, not mine. What really bothered me was how they had planned this whole thing behind my back and just assumed I would pay for it. They hadn't asked me if I wanted to go to Hawaii for Christmas. They hadn't asked if I could afford it or if it fit my budget. They had just decided that I was their personal bank account. The silent treatment continued right up until Christmas Eve. I had already bought everyone their presents, good ones, expensive ones, because despite everything, they were still my family. I also stopped at the fancy bakery downtown and bought an expensive Christmas cake, the kind with real buttercream frosting and fresh berries that cost almost $60. I figured maybe if I made an effort, we could have a nice Christmas together and put all this Hawaii nonsense behind us. When I walked into the house that evening, I was surprised by how friendly everyone was being. Mom actually smiled when she saw me and said, "Audrey, you're home. Perfect timing for Christmas Eve dinner." Daisy and Sophia both said hello and actually looked happy to see me. Even Dad seemed to be in a good mood, asking me about my day at work. It felt weird after weeks of being ignored, but I was relieved. Maybe they had finally realized that their Hawaii plan was unrealistic and they were ready to move on. I put the presents under the Christmas tree and sat down for dinner with everyone. Mom had made a really nice meal, roast beef, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, all my favorites. We actually had normal conversations during dinner. Daisy told us about her chemistry final, Sophia talked about the Christmas concert her choir had performed at school, and Dad shared some funny stories from his job. For the first time in weeks, it felt like we were a real family again. I went to bed that night feeling better about my family than I had in a long time. When I woke up on Christmas morning, the house was completely silent. Usually on Christmas Day, there would be noise, lots of it. Mom making a big breakfast, the twins arguing over presents, Dad watching his Christmas Day football games with the volume up too loud. But there was nothing. Just silence that felt wrong in every possible way. I got dressed and walked through the upstairs hallway looking for everyone. Daisy and Sophia's bedroom doors were open, and when I peeked inside, their beds were empty and made. That was weird, the twins never made their beds. I went downstairs calling out, "Mom? Dad? Where is everyone?" No answer. That's when I saw the note on the living room table, right next to the Christmas tree. My hands were shaking when I picked it up and started reading. "Dear Audrey, surprise. We decided to go to Hawaii for Christmas after all. We secretly bought the plane tickets and booked the hotel room a month ago, right after we first told you about the trip. We used our own money for the deposits so you wouldn't suspect anything. But this morning, we took the $13,000 from your emergency account to pay for the rest of the trip. We know you didn't want to come with us since you were so against the whole idea, so we thought it would be better if you just stayed home. You can keep an eye on the house and finish eating all the leftover food from last night's dinner. Don't worry about us, we'll be having the time of our lives on the beautiful beaches of Hawaii. Love, your loving family." I read the note 3 times before it really sank in. They had planned this the entire time. The friendly dinner last night, the normal conversations, the smiles, it was all fake. They were just making sure I wouldn't suspect they were about to steal my money and abandon me on Christmas Day. I was so angry I could barely think straight. My whole body was shaking with rage and hurt and disbelief. The way they ended the note, telling me to eat leftovers and watch the house like I was their housekeeper. Your loving family. What a sick joke. I wanted to call them immediately and scream. I wanted to tell them exactly what I thought of their scheme. I wanted to make them feel as angry and hurt as I felt right then. But then I stopped myself. Why would I waste my breath yelling at people who had just proven they didn't give a damn about me? Why would I give them the satisfaction of knowing how upset I was? Instead, I was going to do something smarter, something that would show them exactly what I thought of their loving family. I picked up my phone and called my work colleague, Michelle. She had mentioned a few months ago that her aunt was renting out a small house and was looking for a tenant. "Hey Michelle, sorry to bother you on Christmas Day," I said when she answered. "Is that house your aunt was renting still available?" "Oh yeah, I think so. Why, are you interested?" "Very interested. Could you give me her phone number?" "Of course, but Audrey, is everything okay? You sound upset." "I'm fine. I just need to move out of my parents' house as soon as possible." Michelle gave me her aunt's number and I called immediately. The woman was surprised to hear from me on Christmas, but she sounded happy to have a potential renter. "The house is small, but it's in good condition, she explained. It's not furnished, though. Is that okay? That's perfect, I said. I have my own furniture. We arranged to meet that afternoon. I drove over to the address she gave me, a cute little house in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from my work. It was small but clean, with 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a decent-sized living room. When would you like to move in? She asked after showing me around. Tomorrow, I said. If that's possible. She looked surprised but pleased. Well, if you can pay the deposit today, I don't see why not. I wrote her a check for the deposit and first month's rent right there on the spot. She handed me the keys with a big smile. Welcome to your new home, she said. As I drove back to my parents' house, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom, relief, and a plan that was going to teach my loving family a lesson they would never forget. The next day, December 26th, I called a moving company. I told them I needed everything moved that same day and I was willing to pay extra for the rush job. Money wasn't an issue. I had plenty in my personal accounts, and I was about to save a lot more by not supporting my ungrateful family anymore. When the movers arrived, I walked through the house with a clipboard, pointing out everything that belonged to me. The new washing machine, dishwasher, microwave, coffee maker, all mine. I had kept every single receipt over the past 3 years, stored in a neat file folder in my room. Every appliance, every piece of furniture, every electronic device I had purchased was documented. Take the sectional sofa, I told the movers, and that coffee table. The dining room chairs too, all 6 of them. I went upstairs to Daisy and Sophia's room. Those beds, both dressers, and the desk, I said, pointing them out. All of it goes. I did the same thing in my parents' bedroom. The king-size bed I had bought them 6 months ago, the matching nightstands, the dresser set, everything went into the moving truck. The living room was practically empty when I was done. No furniture except for the old, worn-out stuff they had before I started upgrading everything. The kitchen looked bare without all the new appliances I had purchased. But the best part was taking the 65-inch smart TV I had bought just 2 months ago. It had cost me almost $2,000, and my family had been so excited when I brought it home. Dad had spent the first weekend setting up all his sports channels and streaming services. By the time the movers were finished, my parents' house looked like it had been robbed, which in a way it had been, robbed by me, taking back everything that was rightfully mine. I drove to my new house and spent the afternoon directing the movers on where to put everything. It all fit perfectly in my new place. The sectional sofa looked amazing in the living room, and the big TV was perfect for the main wall. That evening, I sat in my new living room eating takeout food and watching Netflix on my reclaimed TV. For the first time in months, I felt completely relaxed. My family had been gone for a week, and during that entire time, they hadn't called me once. Not a single text message asking how I was or wishing me a Merry Christmas. It was like I didn't exist to them unless they needed my money. But I knew that was about to change real fast. I checked my mom's Facebook page once during that week, just out of curiosity. She had posted tons of photos from Hawaii, pictures of them on the beach, at fancy restaurants, by the resort pool. Everyone looked tan and happy and relaxed. The caption on one photo made me laugh out loud: "My beloved family is here. Only the people who are most important to me. Only the most important people, right?" The people who were so important that she stole $13,000 from the person who had been bankrolling their lives for 3 years. I screenshot that post and saved it. Something told me I might want to remember those words later. January 1st arrived, and I knew my family was scheduled to return home that day. I spent the morning organizing my new house, setting up my home office in the 2nd bedroom, and just enjoying the peace and quiet of my own space. Around noon, my phone started ringing. Mom's number on the caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Voicemail. Then Daisy, then Sophia, then Mom again. I ignored all of them and continued watching a movie on my big TV. By afternoon, the calls had stopped, but the text messages started coming in fast and frantic. Mom, Audrey, where are you? We're home and the house is empty. Where is all the furniture? Dad, call us immediately. We need to talk about what happened to our things. Daisy, Audrey, where is my bed? Where is everything? Sophia, Mom is freaking out. Call us right now. The messages got more and more frantic as the day went on. Mom sent me a long text threatening to call the police and report me for theft. I couldn't help but laugh at that one. Go ahead and call the police, I thought. I'll show them my receipts. By evening, the tone of the messages started to change. Mom sent a text that said, Audrey, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We really need to talk. Please call me. I decided it was time to end this game. I called her back. She answered on the first ring. Audrey, thank God. Where are you? What happened to the house? We came home and there's nothing here. We're sitting on air mattresses. I moved out, I said calmly, and I took my furniture and appliances with me. Your furniture? Audrey, that's our family's furniture. You can't just take everything. Actually, I can. I paid for all of it. I have receipts for every single item. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Mom's voice got very small and scared. Audrey, please come home. We can work this out. We're really sorry about the Hawaii thing. We know we should have handled it differently. You stole $13,000 from me, I said. And you left me alone on Christmas Day to eat leftovers while you went on vacation with my money. We'll pay you back, she said quickly. It might take us some time, but we'll pay back every penny. I don't want your money anymore, Mom. I'm done. What do you mean you're done? I mean I'm not coming back. I'm not paying your mortgage anymore. I'm not buying you appliances or furniture or giving the twins money for clothes. I'm done being your family ATM. I could hear her crying now. Audrey, please. We can't afford the mortgage without your help. And the girls are graduating this year. We still need to figure out how to pay for their college. I hung up. They tried calling a few more times that evening, but I didn't answer. Eventually, they stopped. That was 8 months ago now. I'm still living in my little rental house, and I love it more every day. I'm saving more money than I ever have in my life. Without having to support 4 other people, I'm putting away almost $2,500 every month toward buying my own place. I changed all the passwords on my bank accounts and closed the family emergency account completely. That money, what was left of it after they stole $13,000, went straight into my private savings. According to my relatives, my parents are both working overtime now to pay the mortgage and support Daisy and Sophia. They're also panicking about college tuition since both twins are graduating this spring. And honestly, good. Let them figure it out the way normal parents do, with their own money and maybe some student loans. I know they thought they could keep using me as their personal bank account forever. They probably figured I'd always be too guilty or too afraid to stand up for myself. But they were wrong. And now they're learning what it's like to live without my money and without me. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us our own worth. Sometimes walking away from the people who claim to love you is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. And sometimes the moments that break us are exactly what we need to finally become who we were always meant to be. The silence that greeted me that Christmas morning wasn't just the absence of my family, it was the sound of my freedom finally beginning. It was the moment I stopped being their ATM and started being myself again. Thanks for listening, and if this story resonated with you, share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding the courage to put yourself first and discovering your true worth. Sometimes you have to lose your family to find yourself.